Dajia. I'm Kate Hayford, a writer and human rights advocate from Adelaide, South Australia. Since 2018, I've been working in collaboration with the Jasic Workers Solidarity Group, based in the People's Republic of China. At the present time, 48 people remain in custody or have disappeared in connection with the Jasic Incident, an ongoing labour rights conflict in Shenzhen, Guangdong province. I've prepared this video with the intention of giving a full and comprehensive report on the detained and missing persons. The purpose of this is twofold. Firstly, that the comrades know they are not forgotten, and secondly, that their oppressors know we will hold them to account for their reprehensible actions. I obtained the endorsement of the Jasic Workers Solidarity Group prior to making this video. That being said, all opinions expressed here are mine, and I take full responsibility for them. Righto, let's begin. First of all, I'd like to ensure all viewers are acquainted with the Jasic Incident, so if you'll bear with me, I'll quickly recap the main events. May 2018, a group of workers employed at Jasic Technology in Pingshan District, Shenzhen, drafted a petition to form a labour union in response to poor working conditions, illegal mandatory overtime work and excessive fines. They were initially granted permission by the relevant District Federation of Trade Union, hereafter abbreviated to FTU, but were advised they needed company approval, which Jasic ultimately refused to provide after several weeks of hostile negotiations. By early July, Jasic had begun to take steps of reprisal against the union supporters, while the FTU had reneged on its earlier consent and sided with Jasic in the resulting conflicts. An attempt by the workers to form a union independently had swift repercussions. Jasic sacked 7 workers immediately, while others involved were beaten by unidentified thugs. A series of protests broke out after the workers' dismissal, culminating in the July 27th crackdown, where the police detained 29 people, including sacked workers, their family members, and supporters who had gathered to protest outside the Jasic factory. In reaction to the mass arrest, around 50 student activists and supporters of the Jasic workers travelled to Shenzhen to protest in person. They had already formed an organisation of their own called the Jasic Workers Solidarity Group. These students were self-proclaimed Marxists and Maoists from various parts of China, and they were remarkably visible, vocal and well organised as a group. On August the 6th, approximately 80 supporters, including the student activists, staged a protest rally outside Yanzhuling police station in Pingshan district. Significantly, their numbers were boosted by a group of supporters from the ultra-left Maoist group Utopia, including 40 current and retired members of the Communist Party. All 50 students were detained on August 24th, following a police raid on their accommodation. Most of them were later released. 4 remain in detention to this day. Also on the 24th, Jasic released the preliminary findings of a so-called police investigation into the crackdown of July 27th. It's still available online, and I suppose it's worth reading as an example of the rhetoric employed in China whenever somebody wants to justify the government's persecution of the vulnerable. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't bother. I've read it, and it's complete bullshit. Anyway, since then, the government has continued to crack down on the Jasic movement. Their methods have become increasingly more brutal, and in a regime where even police-sponsored violence is carried out strictly by the book, alarmingly maverick. In September, a Peking University medical student associated with the Jasic movement was kidnapped while on campus. On November 9th, evidently in a coordinated attack, 16 people were forcibly disappeared by unknown assailants across Beijing, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Shanghai and Wuhan. One of these kidnappings again occurred on the campus of Peking University. the unidentified thugs also beat up a young medical student who had no connection to the Jasic movement at that time. There was another spate of arrests around the beginning of January. In some cases, the police did not even attempt to legitimise their actions, but simply invented charges on the spot. The last coordinated mass arrest took place on January 21st. 6 of the victims were Peking University students or graduates and were apprehended on campus. By this time, the violence and damage caused by the assailants was hardly worth reporting, as it was what the students had come to expect. To an extent, and in fairly general terms, I do understand the rationale behind the severity of the government retaliations, and I want to explain it because I know a lot of us sort of went, huh? When we first learnt that the Chinese government was cracking down on Marxists. Weren't they meant to be on the same side? Well, China being a one-party state, which is to say a one-party dictatorship with all power vested in the Communist Party, the left is always going to be more of a threat to the government than the right is. Because by espousing Marxism in its pure form, the Jasic activists have shown how far the CCP has drifted from its origins. Neither can the Jasic activists be openly labelled as enemies of the state, because they're not opposing the government. They are not saying, down with Xi Jinping. They're merely reminding the Communist Party of its ideological roots, and this is precisely what makes them such a threat. Xi Jinping plays lip service to Marxism, but that's as far as it goes or will ever go, because Marxism is no longer compatible with the Communist Party of today. Marxism is essentially a revolutionary ideology, and the CCP is no longer about revolution. It is a party of organisation, stability, and above all, control. And Xi Jinping's enthusiasm for the Chinese dream, the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, as manifested in the vast expansion of China's middle class and the acquisition of material wealth, shows that he, and by proxy the party, are far more in alignment with China's bourgeoisie than with its proletariat. Where then does the class struggle of Marxism fit in Xi Jinping's China? The answer? It doesn't. There's a second reason why the government's coming down so hard on the Jasic activists. It has to do with the coalition between workers and students. Traditionally, the worker and student classes in China have been kept relatively separate and apart. This was the case even in the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests. So what we're seeing now in China's labour rights movement is largely unprecedented. Rather than remaining separate from the workers, the students have educated themselves in order to better understand the workers' plight, and hence they have a genuine appreciation and insight into the labour rights movement. They are not just supportive, but well informed too. Where the self-awareness of these young people originates is an interesting question in itself, and I suggest that interested viewers Google it. As much as I'd love to discuss it here, I should probably move on. Others with far more expertise than I possess have given some very satisfying answers, which you will find online. Suffice to say, the Jasic movement began as a workers' rights protest. It then expanded to include 100 young Marxist university students, as well as attracting the support of older Maoist radicals. Social commentators have repeatedly highlighted the organisation and confidence of the student movement, as well as the involvement of those who publicly identify as Marxists and or Maoists as the key aspects which make the Jasic movement historically significant. Which is to say, it suggests a new phase of the Chinese labour movement, the transition from economic struggle to political struggle. And in doing so, it transcends class boundaries for the first time. What this means for China, it's too early to say, because as far as I'm aware, as far as most of us are aware, nothing like this has taken place before. I'll now begin to list the names of those who, at the time of February 20th, 2019, remain in custody or otherwise unaccounted for. Please excuse my Chinese pronunciation, it's atrocious, and it's also 3:20 in the morning here. 1. Oh, for God's sakes. If I could, I should have bloody known this would happen. If I can reverse the camera angle, you should be able to see this the right way around, but the way I'm holding it at the moment, it's back to front. Anyway, number 1, Mi Jiuping, a Jasic construction worker, arrested July 27th, 2018 in Pingshan District, Shenzhen. He is one of the 4 workers against whom charges have been pressed for disturbing social order. That is the official charge. All 4 have been denied access to their lawyers as they await trial. Number 2, Yu Junkong, Jasic construction worker and activist involved in the attempt to establish a trade union. He was arrested July 27th in Pingshan District, Shenzhen. He is one of the 4 workers against whom charges have been pressed for disturbing social order. 3. Liu Penghua, Jasic construction worker and activist involved in the attempt to establish a trade union. He was arrested July 27th in Pingshan District, Shenzhen. He is one of the 4 workers against whom charges have been pressed for disturbing social order. 4. Li Chan, former Jasic worker who supported the activists' cause. He was arrested July 27th in Pingshan District, Shenzhen. He is one of the 4 workers against whom charges have been pressed for disturbing social order. 5. Fu Zhangguo, staff member of Shenzhen Migrant Workers Centre. He was arrested August the 10th in Shenzhen despite never having been involved in the Jasic protests. Instead, he visited the Jasic Technology Factory in his capacity as Labour Law Consultant of the Workers' Centre in order to learn more about the incident. In addition, he also circulated news items and links to fundraising sites, which subsequently led to him being charged with radicalising the Jasic Incident. I should mention that these articles and links are real, their content is based on factual evidence as opposed to rumour and innuendo, and that they have been circulated by many supporters of the Jasic movement, including myself. There is nothing in any of the material that constitutes radicalisation of the Jasic events. Nevertheless, Fu remains in detention, and recently Chinese state authorities denied him permission to attend his mother's funeral. 6. Chung Mong-Koo, graduate of Sun Yat-sen University. She was kidnapped in Huizhou on August 11th, 2018. Her whereabouts are currently unknown. In January, video footage emerged of Ms. Shen, where she allegedly confessed to trying to overthrow the Communist Party and the government. It is widely suspected that this confession was obtained under extreme duress, by which I mean the methods of brainwashing and or torture to coerce the individual into giving confession. These suspicions have been affirmed by the students who were forced by Chinese state authorities to watch the video. In addition, they described Ms. Shen as appearing dull and glassy-eyed as though she had been sedated, and often hesitant when speaking, as though she was struggling to remember what to say. 3 other detainees appeared in the same video and gave similar confessions, and I will get to them shortly. Seven. Gu Jiayue, graduate of Peking University. She was arrested on August 24th in Beijing. She is currently being held in a form of detention known as residential surveillance or at a designated location, or RSDL. This is a totalitarian measure unique to the Communist Party of China and allows police to interrogate suspects for up to 6 months without legal representation or recourse to one's basic human rights. There are countless allegations of physical and psychological abuse, torture, and forced confessions associated with RSDL. Ms. Gu also appeared in the January video and gave a confession similar to Ms. Shen's. Once more, it is widely suspected that her confession was obtained through the use of brainwashing and/or torture. Students forced to view the footage described Ms. Gu's appearance as being in a drugged-like state. Cheng Yongbing, graduate of Nanjing Agricultural University. He was arrested on August 24, 2018 in Huizhou. He is being held under RSDL in an undisclosed location. He also appeared in the January video and gave a confession. Again, it is widely suspected that his confession was obtained through methods of brainwashing and/or torture. Cheng has previously spoken about his earlier experience in detention at the hands of state authorities. In 2017, he was the organiser of a student reading group at the Guangdong University of Technology. The entire group was rounded up and arrested. Cheng himself was detained from December 5, 2017 to January 17, 2018. He described the thuggish nature of his arrest, the 8-hour initial interrogation, and the subsequent interrogations while in detention. He finally wrote a scripted confession after being led to believe that his refusal to admit his crimes had caused his friends to be arrested. This turned out to be untrue. He also verified a female friend and classmate's account of the brutal physical and psychological abuse she experienced while in detention. Just to reiterate, this is taken from Cheng's testimony regarding his earlier experience in detention. Nothing is known of his current whereabouts or the conditions in which he is being held. Xu Chungliang, graduate of Beijing University of Science and Technology. He was arrested on August 24th in Huizhou. He is being held under RSDL in an undisclosed location. No one has seen or heard from him since his arrest. 10. Yue Xin, graduate of Peking University. She was forcibly disappeared on August 24th in Huizhou, and her whereabouts are currently unknown. Furthermore, her mother has not been seen since September the 2nd. Ms. Yue was the fourth person to appear in the January video. Her confession also included renouncing her role in China's Me Too movement in 2016, which gained worldwide attention at the time. Students forced to view the video footage said that Ms. Yue was the only member of the four who appeared to have retained her sanity, speculating that perhaps she had been subjected to the methods of obtaining confession for a shorter length of time. I have to stop here for a minute. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. In describing these events, I've done my best to remain impartial and distant as appropriate to a reporter who's not an eyewitness. I'm finding it very hard to discuss these matters in such a clinical, detached manner, and I can't do it anymore. I'm going to speak frankly and honestly because I can. My country's not going to throw me in jail for voicing my opinion after all. I mean, I'm sure Peter Dutton would like that power, but fortunately Australia is still a democracy the last time I checked. Speculation, suspicions, allegations, such terminology belongs in a court of law, where something must be proven beyond reasonable doubt before it can be accepted as a fact. But we aren't in court. I don't need to see that video to believe the student eyewitness accounts. As soon as I heard that 4 of the missing activists had given confessions, I knew they'd been obtained by coercion or by force. I don't accept for 1 second that they were made voluntarily. That's not how the Communist Party operates, and by trying to report these events as an impartial observer, I feel like I'm according the party's actions a legitimacy that, frankly, they don't deserve. Anyway, Let's carry on, but I'm taking my journalist hat off before it chokes me. Number 11. Jasic, a student at the Peking University School of Medicine. He was forcibly kidnapped on campus on the night of September the 23rd. Several students described hearing a shriek and witnessing their classmate being wrestled to the ground by a group of thugs, who then forced him into a car and drove away. It's not known what has happened to him. His classmates have tried many times to contact him without success. The university is denying all knowledge of the incident. I'd just like to remind viewers that Peking University, colloquially known as Beta, has historically been a centre of significant intellectual, cultural and socio-political movements, including the May 4th movement of 1919 and the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests. That the university is now colluding with government authorities in suppressing student activism to the extent of cooperating with state police and apprehending students through violent means is distressing in the extreme. Wu Lijie, editor of the China Red Flag Network, a left-wing media website. He was arrested on October 24th, 2018 in Henan province. His website has since been shut down, and I have personally been unable to obtain any further knowledge of his whereabouts or his detention conditions. Chung Mong-Koo, graduate of Peking University. He was kidnapped from Beta campus on November the 9th, 2018. His whereabouts are currently unknown. Witnesses said he was beaten by a group of men who also beat several bystanders and prevented them from taking photos. The Jasic Workers Solidarity Group gave the following statement: Peking University acquiesced to the kidnapping. This is another crime universities have committed against progressive students and the left-wing community. 14. Chung Yang, graduate of Peking University. He was apprehended in Beijing and forcibly disappeared on November the 9th, 2018. His whereabouts are unknown. Zheng Yuran, graduate of Beijing Language and Culture University. She was apprehended in Beijing and forcibly disappeared on November 9th, 2018. Her whereabouts are unknown. Le Dajia, graduate of Nanjing University of Technology. He was apprehended in Beijing and forcibly disappeared on November 9th, 2018. His whereabouts are unknown. Li Xiaxian, graduate of Nanjing University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. She was apprehended in Beijing and forcibly disappeared on November 9th, 2018. Her whereabouts are unknown. He Pengchao, founder of Qingying DreamWorks Social Worker Center. He was apprehended in Beijing and forcibly disappeared on November 9th, 2018. His whereabouts are unknown. Liang Xiaoyong, worker supporter. He was apprehended in Shanghai and forcibly disappeared on November 9th, 2018. His whereabouts are unknown. Zhu Liping, community union staff member. She was arrested in Shenzhen on November 9th, 2018 and charged with picking quarrels and provoking trouble. Her whereabouts are unknown. Li Ao, community union staff member. He was arrested in Shenzhen on November 9, 2018 and charged with picking quarrels and provoking trouble. His whereabouts are unknown. (22) Sun Min, graduate of Peking University. She was apprehended in Guangdong and forcibly disappeared on November 9, 2018. Her whereabouts are unknown. (23) Wang Shangyi, founder of Jingyin DreamWorks Social Worker Center. She was apprehended in Shenzhen and forcibly disappeared on November 9, 2018. Her whereabouts are unknown. (24) Wang Xiaomei, staff member of Jingyin DreamWorks Social Worker Center. She was apprehended in Shenzhen and forcibly disappeared on November 9, 2018. Her whereabouts are unknown. (25) Ho Changshan, staff member of Jingyin DreamWorks Social Workers Center. She was apprehended in Shenzhen and forcibly disappeared on November 9, 2018. Her whereabouts are unknown. (26) He Xiumei, supporter of Jingyin DreamWorks Social Workers Center. She was apprehended in Shenzhen and forcibly disappeared on November 9, 2018. Her whereabouts are unknown. (27) Jian Xiaowei, staff member of Jingyin DreamWorks Social Worker Center. She was apprehended in Shenzhen and forcibly disappeared on November 9, 2018. Her whereabouts are unknown. (28) Zheng Shuyu, worker supporter. He was apprehended in Wuhan and forcibly disappeared on November 9, 2018. His whereabouts are unknown. (29) Sao Jian, Peking University security guard. On December 28, 2018, he was arrested in Beijing on grounds of disturbing the social order. He remains in arbitrary detention. (30) Ma Zhushang, Peking University security guard. On December 28, 2018, he was arrested in Beijing on grounds of disturbing the social order. He remains in arbitrary detention. (31) Yu Kailong, worker supporter and Jasic Workers Solidarity Group member. He was arrested on December 30, 2018 in Changsha. At this time, he was out on bail after being previously detained in the Jasic Incident. (32) Lan Zhuwei, worker supporter and Jasic Workers Solidarity Group member. He was arrested on January 2, 2019 in Changsha. At this time, he was out on bail after being previously detained in the Jasic Incident. (33) Zhang Zuying, Jasic Workers Solidarity Group member. She was arrested on January 2, 2019 in Changsha. She is the wife of detained former Jasic worker Li Jian and is a nursing mother. Their baby was born last March and has now been removed from her care. Ms. Zhang was detained for publicly supporting her husband. (34) Zhang Zhenjin, Peking University student. He was arrested on January 2, 2019 in Changsha, whereupon Beta announced his expulsion from the university. I know a little of his backstory, so I'd like to share it here. Zhang Jinzhen was born in a small village in Henan province, historically one of China's main agricultural centres, but plagued by poverty and insufficient land supply in recent decades, so that millions of farmers left to become labourers instead, including Chan's parents. Many of the construction sites where they worked did not meet basic safety requirements. When he was 3, Chan lost his father in a scaffolding accident, whereupon he was raised single-handedly by his mother. As a high school student, he was determined to get into a good university so he could make his mother's life easier. He gained a place at Peking University after competing against millions of other students in Henan. At Beta, he became aware of the suffering of the working class on a larger scale, which led to an expanding of his original objective. From wanting to give his mother a better life, he now began exploring ways and means to restore happiness and dignity to the working class as a whole. He actively participated in and organised activities for the Peking University Marxist Society and has repeatedly championed the rights of Beta campus workers. In the wake of the Jasic Incident, Chan expressed his support for the protection of the workers and joined the Jasic Workers Solidarity Group. He was arrested in Changsha in January after participating in activities commemorating Mao Zedong's birthday. Shortly afterwards, the Beta administration made the decision to expel him. To date, the university has refused to provide a satisfactory explanation as to why. (35) Li Yuanchu, Jasic Workers Solidarity Group supporter. Li is one of the 3 11/9 victims, ex-colleagues of Chung Mong-Koo, who were arrested on November the 9th, interrogated by police and pressured to give testimony against Ms. Shen, including a claim that she accepted overseas funds to stir up workers. According to Li, the police would not allow him to sleep for over 30 hours, they tore his clothes and kicked him, and eventually forced him to write a letter denouncing Chung Mong-Koo, something he regretted in the extreme. The abusive treatment of Li and his 2 fellow victims was reported by the Jasic Workers Solidarity Group after all 3 were released. Li is now in custody again, having been arrested in Guangdong on January 3, 2019. (36) Yang Zhengchun, Silicosis Workers' Rights Defender. A graduate of Minzu University of China, he is the editor-in-chief of Xinjiang magazine, literally translated as The New Generation. He was arrested in Guangzhou on January 8, 2019 and charged with disrupting social order, a charge made up on the spot by the arresting officer. He remains in detention in Shenzhen. (37) Feng Chongjie, a student at the Peking University School of Medicine. On November 9, 2018, he was violently apprehended and beaten up on Beta campus by thugs dressed in black. He was forced into a car and driven a short distance before being thrown to the ground. He reported the incident to police, who accompanied him to hospital for treatment of his injuries. He wrote an essay describing his experience, in which he demanded that campus security be held accountable for sheltering his assailants and refusing to take action over the matter. While Feng did not directly address this in his statement, it seems apparent that this incident was part of the state crackdown on labour activism, which coordinated multiple violent attacks on the students between the 9th and 11th of November. Disturbingly, it seems that Feng's attackers did not know who he was, nor did they associate him with the workers' rights movement. In other words, he was beaten up at random simply because he happened to be walking by. Following the attack, Feng's parents were pressured by the university into coming and forcibly taking him home towards the end of November. He later returned to campus, but disappeared once more in mid-January of this year. His whereabouts remain unknown. 38. Wang Mengjie, a student at the Peking University School of Medicine. She supported the Jasic Workers Solidarity Group and regularly shared their news and updates online. She also posted on social media in support of the Jasic workers. On January 16, 2019, she was apprehended on Beta campus and forced into a taxi. She was with friends at the time. They tried to rescue her but were stopped by Beta security as well as teachers, some of whom forced the students to the ground and pinned them down. This is the first time where teachers as well as security staff were actively involved in using violence to suppress the students, at least to the best of my knowledge. Wang remains under home detention. One thing I did notice in the reports of her kidnapping, almost nobody bothered to ask what charges had been laid against her. A sense of fatalism was emerging in both the news reports and the student eyewitness accounts. In other words, people recognised that it no longer mattered what the charges were because they were only there to lend the trappings of legitimacy to the kidnapping of a student on campus. There is a Chinese proverb, Yu Jia Ji Zui He Huan Wu Su, where there is a will to condemn, there is evidence. Wang Jiao, a canteen security guard at Renmin University, arrested January 18, 2019. At the time of his arrest, he was well acquainted with the Xinguang Civilian Development Association, a student organisation with an emphasis on combining education and practical experience, and which fostered close relationships between students and workers. Following the Jasic incident, Xinguang students openly supported the Jasic Workers Solidarity Group. From then on, concentrated efforts were made by the university administration first to prohibit contact between students and workers and ultimately to shut down Xinguang. Wang Jiao was arrested on January 18th after organising a workers' petition in support of Xinguang. Following his arrest, there have been attempts to discredit Wang in the form of articles written under a pseudonym. They have disputed that Wang ever worked at Renda and accused him of conspiring with Xinguang students to steal food from the student canteen. The Xinguang students responded with a letter of their own, where they admitted to giving Wang a discount on his meals, but insisted that he was not a thief. They said he was being persecuted for his efforts to improve workers' rights and for singing the Internationale at a Xinguang informal gathering. Apparently this now constitutes disruptive behaviour, despite being the de facto anthem of the Communist Party. For my Western audience, I would like to add that Wang Jiao is only 18 years old. He was born into a poor family. Like so many children in his situation, entered the workforce while still in elementary school in order to help support his family. Prior to his arrest, he was working 7 days a week, morning until night. He obtained an understanding of the labour laws through studying the legislation after finishing work for the night, and actively used this knowledge to improve workers' rights for others. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop again briefly. Do they still have Learn from Lai Feng Day in China? Because I have to wonder how Lai Feng would survive under Xi Jinping's rule, being the model soldier of the people that he was, or if, carting around gargantuan piles of manure and darning his comrades' socks would now constitute disruptive behaviour. Although maybe having the photographer along would mitigate the crimes. No. On second thoughts, that'd probably just provide more evidence to present at his trial, after he was arrested for reading the works of Chairman Mao with a flashlight, and he wouldn't have a human rights lawyer to defend him because they've all been fucking arrested too. Moving on. The following 7 arrests all occurred on January 21st and included 4 undergraduate and 2 graduate students from Peking University, as well as 1 undergraduate student from Renmin University. 4 were members of the Peking University Marxist Society. The arrests are thought to be related to correspondence published on the Jasic Solidarity Group website, where students discussed the confessions video they had been forced to watch and openly stated their beliefs that the confessions had been forced by the authorities. 40. Li Zi, undergraduate student at Peking University, also a member of the Marxist Society. 41. Ma Shuzhi, undergraduate student at Peking University, also a member of the Marxist Society. 42. Yan Zuhao, undergraduate student at Renmin University. 43. Li Jiahao, graduate student of Peking University, also a member of the Marxist Society. He was previously detained on August 24th during a police raid of supporters of the Jasic movement. 44. Huang Yu, graduate student of Peking University, participated in the memorial of Mao Zedong at Shaoshan on September the 9th. Huang was not arrested by uniformed police, but was instead taken away by unknown assailants. His whereabouts are currently unknown. 45. Sun Jiayan, undergraduate student at Peking University. He too was taken away by unknown assailants. His whereabouts are currently unknown. 46. Chung Mong-Koo, undergraduate student at Peking University, also a member of the Marxist Society. The night of the 21st is one I remember well. I had lost touch with my contacts in the Solidarity Group temporarily as it happened. At the time I assumed they'd been arrested and I was trying to find out what was going on when a video appeared in my messages. It was in Chinese and it appeared to have been filmed by someone on a mobile phone while hiding under a bed or a table. All I could understand of the video was the first sentence, "I am Chung Mong-Koo." My Chinese language skills are not fantastic. It took me a good 2 hours to translate what was probably a minute and a half of video footage, but even before I was able to understand the content, I was struck by Chung's demeanour. It was clearly an urgent situation. Other students had already been arrested that night, and at the time of filming, the police had begun systematically kicking down the doors in the university dormitories to find him. Yet he did not seem afraid at all, but resolute and determined. Here is my translation of Chung's video from that night. I think it is reasonably accurate. I am Chung Mong-Koo. Today, 6 of our comrades have been taken away, 2 of whom live downstairs from our place. They were forced into the car and shouted, "Call the police." Now the dark forces are making door-to-door searches. They want to take me away like the others. But those who fight for the proletariat, are they afraid? The proletariat is not afraid of death. Why should it fear repression? Since I initially compiled this report, 2 further disturbances have been recorded. Friends of the missing believe they were taken away by the state police. 47. Chen Kexin, a student of Renmin University, disappeared in Wuhan on February 16, 2019. She was a member of the Jasic Workers Solidarity Group and prior to her disappearance had been forced to stay at home for a month. During this time she underwent a hunger strike to protest her illegal detention by the police. Her current whereabouts are unknown. 48. Wu Jiawei, graduate of Renmin University, also disappeared in Wuhan on February 16, 2019. He had previously been detained in Wuhan for 24 hours by the police last November. His current whereabouts are unknown. This concludes the list of arrested and missing persons to date. Please feel free to share this video in order to spread the word. In a situation of this nature, raising awareness is paramount. It may not stop the government authorities from carrying out their extreme measures to silence China's voices, but it drives up the cost of their actions. All change begins somewhere. For more information on the Jasic Incident and for future updates, please visit the following web address. I really hope that I can reverse this video footage so it'll show the right way around. This shows their website address. The original content is in Chinese, but English translations are also provided in full. Contact details are available on the website if you would like to contribute your support to this cause. Here also is their Twitter account, which provides regular updates. If anyone wishes to contact me regarding this report or for any other reason, here are my email and Twitter details. I speak French as well as English, and while my spoken Chinese is pretty atrocious, I can read and write it well enough to get by, so please don't feel obliged to use English if you'd rather not. Thanks are due to the Jasic Workers Solidarity Group, who kindly provided me with a full list of names, occupations and dates of arrests of the 48 people in custody or missing. All other research and writing of content was carried out by myself independently. I bear full responsibility for any factual inaccuracies or errors of translation. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. Ren Min Wansui.